If you're in a relationship with someone, you should be open with your phone. Why do you feel like you need to hide that?
Mostly, men have a hidden agenda.
Once you start setting boundaries with people, that's when you're going to really cut off a lot of people, and people are not going to start liking you.
Growing up, the friend I have, he had a completely different personality to me. That's what fascinated me.
Some of my really close friends, I look at them in awe.
You're hating on that person, it reminds yourself of who you were.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Autonomous Podcast with me, one of your hosts, Tharani, and Marlon. So we've got quite an interesting few topics that we're going to talk about. To be honest, I've been really interested in these Reddit stories where you read these stories and they're so interesting and it's quite relatable stories. So I thought I'd read it out to you. Am I wrong for checking my partner's phone without permission? That's the title. I am a 26-year-old female, have been dating my boyfriend James, a 28-year-old male, for 2 years. Recently, I noticed that James has been acting a bit distant and secretive with his phone. He used to leave it out in the open, but now he takes it everywhere with him, even the bathroom. Sounds like you, James.
Well, I'm not like that. Everyone's like that.
Yeah, to be honest, I take my phone to the bathroom.
Yeah, of course.
One night, while he was asleep, I decided to check his phone to see if there was anything suspicious. I found some flirty messages between him and his co-worker. When I confronted him, he was furious that I invaded his privacy and said that the messages were harmless and just friendly banter. Now he's questioning whether he can trust me. Am I wrong for checking his phone without permission? Ooh.
Well, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people have like different perspective to this, right? So and genuinely, this is one of those things where we have maybe potentially like equally divided arguments to this.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want me to give my perspective to you first, or do you want to go and give your more female perspective to that?
Well, I think if you're in a relationship with someone, see, this is where it could get quite controversial, because I feel like if you're in a relationship with someone, I think you should be quite open with your phone, because what is there to have there's no point in having a secret in a relationship. I mean, what is there in your text that would make you feel a certain way? That's the question.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you need to hide that from your partner? There should be there's obviously a hidden something that you feel that your partner shouldn't see, right? And I think in the beginning of your relationship, you should lay down the law. You should say exactly what happened in your past, who was in your past, what happened, because it happened in the past. It shouldn't really affect your future. So I think you should be open. I mean, we're both very open with our phones, and I like my relationships to be like that. So if someone is acting suspicious and they're not talking to me about it, I'd really want to know. I would have done the same thing this girl done, just watch out. But I think she's not in the wrong at all, because actually females have a gut instinct, right? They know when a man is feeling a certain way, that you feel it in your gut, you sense it. So you've got to kind of go with your gut in that situation. And she was right. Yeah. So if anything, I understand it's the privacy situation, but you go, girl.
I think from a man's perspective, I don't think it's anything to do with man or woman's perspective on this. From my perspective, I think the way I'd like my relationship to be is that if you come together as two individuals and you share your life together and you go buy shopping or grocery together, therefore you create that bond, right? So you're going to have children one day, you're going to share them, and you're going to share parenting with each other. So if you're coming together as two people, I think it's important to nurture that relationship with trust and commitment and transparency, openness. Therefore, it will develop into something more beautiful, a great partnership, right? So from this perspective, I think if the guy is being suspicious and talking to other girls clearly and banter in the, I do not think, I mean, people can debate on this, but I do think that you're working on a fine line when it comes to having friendship with opposite genders, so for example, because the way, for some reason, women perceive relationship is quite different to how men perceive it. Men always have so relationship or a friendship is all about like give and take, right? So you have two parties come together. There's something that is valuable in the other person that you like. But when it comes to having male and female friends, there's that difference where men perceive friendship quite differently, and we have mostly men have a hidden agenda, right? So for men, there's a fundamental need to procreate. So there's that sexual attraction. I'm not saying that all, relationship based on sexual attraction between men and women, but if you look at the statistics of it, there's a good chance that what is it that the woman can provide to the man as a friend, other than in men's perspective, sex. It could be emotional. It could be, it's different to one person to the other, and how you grew up and how you perceive relationship as a whole. I would think from my perspective, it's always that it's a gray area. So I find it difficult, and a lot of men find it difficult to have female friends without crossing a line.
Yeah,
right?
You've told me in the past, actually, which I find quite interesting. You've told me in the past that men don't seek that much friendship from women, right? So women, I feel personally, I don't mind having friendships with males because I don't connect them to like a sexual desire. I just like connection, and I think most women like connection. Most women like feeling a little bit validated here and there, but it doesn't go beyond that. Whereas you've told me in the past, men, they go for one thing and one thing only, 80% of men, and we just need to watch out for their intentions sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. So like you said as well, women can distinguish, segregate that, compartmentalize their feelings, association, the relationship into, okay, this is just a friendship. When it comes to men, any feelings, emotional friendship connection trumps our sexual desire, right? So sexual urge. So therefore, there's always that underlying factor where when there's a man and a woman involved, men feel a certain way, right? So you can't really, it's hard to fight the human nature. So on that basis, I think it's very difficult to really exactly gauge. And there's probably people out there, men out there, who can really play that well, segregate that, distinguish that well. But it's not something that is natural from our perspective. It's not something that we turn around and say, yeah, we got like hundreds of female friends. We go out, we hang out, we have a beer together, whatever. So our version of having that is quite different to women. So it's just it's the dynamic of it, right? So from a man's perspective, it's quite weird. And in this particular scenario, clearly he's obviously banter is harmless in his perspective, and he's not letting her into his personal phone, which is fine. But again, what you have to bear in mind is like when you lay down those foundation of, okay, this is mine, this is yours. You can't look into my phone, and I don't want to look into yours. That does create a contradiction to
and it leads
the
to
trust.
It leads to suspicion.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I go through your phone? What is in your phone that would make me feel a certain way? What is in your phone that will make me feel insecure? And that's the question. Why would you allow the person that you love to feel like that? And you can blame the other person and say, well, it's their insecurity. But why aren't you, if they're the love of your life, why aren't you helping them get over this insecurity? And the way to do that is share your phone. Be open with your phone.
Yeah.
And then that way, that creates trust. That builds trust.
Yeah.
In the beginning of a relationship, I'm one of those girls who will look at someone's phone and I will go through it and scan it. But when I trust someone deeply, I never look at their phone because I trust them.
Yeah.
Unless they give me reason to. If they give me reason, if they're neglecting me, if they're showing me suspicion or showing me signs of being unfaithful, that's when I would use my female detective skills and find out what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you touched on, you feel it in your gut. Oh, that's that female instinct.
Intuition.
Yeah. So I think it's not just a instinct, like your intuition that what probably how women feel as well. They probably microanalyze these little things that they do, and then they find, okay, something's off because things are not adding up, right? Again, it's a kind of thing that you need to establish it early in the relationship, because if you don't do that and you go into maybe 2 years or 3 years of dating and you haven't established the ground rules, and that becomes really difficult as the relationship age with you, right? So if you've been together for 5 years and you haven't addressed these fundamental rules of your relationship, if you haven't regulated it, if you haven't clashed and tried to work together and to see how your two worldviews could potentially be harmonized, then you're looking at that later in relationship. You're looking at these kind of problems where, hang on, I'm open to sharing my phone with you. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
That question should have been asked way earlier.
Honestly, when people are in relationships and they say, no, I never look at his phone and she never looks at mine and we just keep it private, I find that really baffling. Because I just feel like, you're meant to be one, so you should share. And my phone might break, so I want to use your phone, and that shouldn't be a problem. And
also, from my perspective, coming from an Asian community, so Asian background, I think it's more that kind of cultural element is very common within Asian culture, right? So when you look at different other cultures, you see these differences, like segregations, and they like to keep things separate. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do. Some cultures find that is okay, or maybe better to do it, and they have their own reasons for it, or in their own rights. I think that is, it's okay to do that. But if you're raised I think it's also a factor of how you were raised as well, your family household, your value structure. That's how you establish your value structure as a human being, right? So growing up, seeing your parents and how do they work together? Do they work together as a team, or do they keep everything separate? Do they, that's how it is, right? So when you look at more advanced civilizations, when you come to big cities like London, New York, and you see these segregations even within the families itself. You have your job, I have my job, I have my income, your income. And then there are other families that we've looked at. You have your separate accounts, and then there's a mutual account. And all that is fine. So I think there's no right or wrong answer here. It boils down to who you are culturally. What's your value? What's your value in terms of being open? What's your value? How do you perceive that? Do you want to share your phone? Do you want to share? Do you want to put our money together and work as a team, or do we want to do it separately, or do you want to do your part and I do my role? How do you establish that? And it's all down to the individuals and their personal characteristics and their personal values and how they grew up, and all that is different perspectives, really. The important takeaway of that is to early days in your relationship, you have to talk a lot, as much as possible, to identify what are these differences you have and work on harmonizing them. Because if you're not happy, so in this case, that girl, she's clearly not happy not being, having access to the guy's phone. And from guy's perspective, well, that's not your business, right? So this is clearly a complete two different worldviews, and that contradicts your, household value. You have to address that. You have to talk about it, sit down to talk about it. Maybe it would take an hour argument or two to clash between each other to find out what's the best solution. And once you have that solution, then you're like, right, okay, from going forward, here's how we regulated it. And conversation will help you do that. That's why communication is key.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of videos that I've got up for us to look and maybe potentially react to it and give our perspective on how we feel about it.
Sure.
Shall I just Push it
Yeah,
on.
go for it.
Not watched a horror movie for 15 years.
Really?
Yeah, you know what that means? I
What?
have not had a nightmare for 15 years. Not a single one. Okay? I've not watched a violent movie unless really badly recommended to me because it has a good message in it. And I watch Michael McIntyre every night before I sleep. But think about that practice. My brain, before I go to sleep, is laughing. That's a choice.
That's true.
That's a choice. And that is the kind of neuroplasticity that we need to shift. If you go to the gym and lift weights every day, you're going to look like a triangle. If you squat every day, you're going to look like a pear. Okay? The same is happening inside your brain. You just don't see it. If you're constantly watching, news media, right? You're literally building your muscles that are concerned and are, critical and are worried about the world, when in reality, most of the time, you can't do anything about it.
That's very true.
That's a really good point. I really believe that that's so true, because when I go to sleep, just before I go to sleep, I always watch a show, right? To just help me doze off, just help me be a little bit more relaxed. And when I watch serious shows like thriller shows, psychological thrillers, I end up getting really bad nightmares. Not even nightmares, I just feel like I'm part of that movie. I just end up visualizing the same kind of thriller movie in my dreams. And then I wake up feeling exhausted and feeling a bit stressed. But when I watch something like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and something really, really happy, like that's my go-to. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is just a mindless show that I get to watch. I just feel happy when I wake up. And it's the same with horror movies. I don't watch that because I feel like it changes the way I think. It changes my brain. What do you think of that?
Yeah, same. I think you and I are very similar when it comes to that kind of thing. I do not watch horror movies at all. Like, unless someone dragged me to it, I don't. Like, naturally, I don't. The reason I don't is whenever I have, it's not that I get scared of it at that time. When I'm watching a horror movie, I feel like, there isn't any strong emotion. I'm okay. I can watch it. I can understand this is a movie, whatever. But every time I watch it, I do have nightmares. And the problem with that was when I was young, I remember the first time that I watched a horror movie. I slept and I woke up. I had so many bad dreams. And that day that I realized, when you wake up after having nightmares the whole night, when you wake up that morning, that's going to set the tone for the rest of your day. That's the hard part, right? So if you wake up exhausted, obviously you haven't had good sleep. That's bothered you psychologically, subconsciously. And therefore you're going to wake up tired naturally. And that's going to, in that dream, whatever happened, nightmare, you get killed, or you go down, you slip down stairs, whatever that may be, you wake up exhausted and you feel tired and sad, or whatever it is, that emotion that you wake up with, that seems to be a negative emotion. When you start the day off of a negative emotion, you tend to, that is going to set the tone for the rest of your day. It's not going to be lively after your coffee. It may be the case for some people. From my experience, the way I look at it, if I do watch anything and I get nightmares that day, I don't have good sleep the next day, or the day after that, or maybe for a week. So that means that has bothered my subconscious for a significant period of time. It's almost like the brain is experiencing that visual. Think about it. You can subconsciously distinguish, this is a movie. This is some setup. Maybe in the case, I think it's true that your brain can't distinguish that this is a movie. It may be the case that brain take this as an actual series of course of events.
Yeah, because
that
you're
happened.
Going through the same emotions.
Yes.
Because you're experiencing it at the same time, so you're going through the same emotions. If someone dies or if someone's happy, you're going through that emotion because you're really feeling, you're really empathizing with whatever's on the TV. So that can actually make you feel unrest. So when you go to sleep, you don't have a good sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. So the brain can't distinguish that this happened in reality or this happened in a movie. Brain doesn't know this is a movie. So we understand this is a movie, but we do often think that, okay, we can distinguish that this is a movie. But maybe part of our subconscious or when you look at, when you read into Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung's work, they talk about the subconscious mind that is quite different to your conscious mind, right? Therefore, that is two different entities. So maybe in the case where that either your subconscious or conscious mind understand that as a threat, as something that's happened to you, and therefore that's created some sort of emotions around it, and created maybe some energy within your body that's released as a result of this, and that's going to create a rippling effect on your mental health and well-being in the long term.
Absolutely.
So I think watching that kind of thing will create that. And also, what I believe is, when it comes to energy, if you think about good things, you can manifest that, right? So there's a book called Secret. That book is about law of attraction. It's about the way you feel. You can change the trajectory of your life anytime that you want by changing the way you think. You program your mind to release the chemicals such as dopamine, for example. If you think about happy things, and if you think about things that's going to uplift you, motivate you, make you more ambitious and driven, then that is going to be your life. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Just like that guy said, watching news all the time, you can't control that. You're constantly getting negative feedback constantly, and it's important to find out if you get affected by that, because if you do, you need to control that situation and switch off watching any news for a while until you can recalibrate your brain.
Yeah. So when there's a book, again, sorry to keep referencing back to a book, but there are certain things that about emotions that I've read about to understand and gauge, to get a better understanding of myself. So there's one other book that I would recommend. It's called Emotional Intelligence. And it's about how we have a rational brain and an emotional brain. And when there's something happen that is emotionally charged, say you get punched in the face, right? You're not going to think rationally at that point. So the first emotions, or we call it emotion, but the first brain that's going to respond to that is your emotional mind. So that's why you would want to hit back immediately. If you throw something at a baby, the reason that baby would flinch is primarily due to this stored memory of baby in the DNA and amygdala that creates a response, immediate response, faster than the rational response for baby to flinch, because baby didn't understand. They didn't learn exactly to flinch if something comes at you. How would this baby know that to flinch if something is thrown at the baby? So the connection to that is the amygdala. So amygdala creates a natural emotionally charged response to anything that is emotionally charged. So if you're going to watch a horror movie and there's a scary clown pops up to the screen, the reason you get scared because amygdala responds to the prefrontal cortex with an emotion for you to react immediately, long before the rational mind comes with a rational thought process. So like you said as well, it's very important to understand and segregate your emotions, and whatever you feed your mind or body into is what you're going to create. It's going to be who you are. It will become your identity. So if you're going to manifest this, if you're going to watch this, I'm not saying that watching people, there are some people that can really watch it and wake up tomorrow without any issue.
Yeah.
That's different kind of people, right? So you deal with your emotions very differently that way. So this is not very relevant to everyone in a general sense. We can't generalize this kind of problem. But there are people like you and I, we feel like that creates so much negative emotions that has a more prolonged consequence in your life, in your mental well-being going down.
Yeah, so moral of the story, don't watch anything sad before bedtime.
Yeah, if you're like us. Yeah. There's another video. Let's just quickly jump into that as well.
Okay, sure.
A lot of people love you and adore you when they don't see you as a threat. When you're still so sweet and so cute, and she's amazing and she's lovely and she's my best friend, that title gets thrown around left, right, and center. But if that person grows a little bit of confidence, power, status, elevates completely in society, a lot of people become very uncomfortable with that. You realize that someone ends up losing friends when they're performing beyond someone else's expectations. that person that was once, I love this girl or I love this guy so much, no longer becomes, who does she think she is? She's changed. She's different. Why is she like that now? She wasn't like this before, because it makes people uncomfortable. That's the reason why you end up losing a lot of friends along the way when you're moving upwards, because most people like you in your place. When you're a little below them or on their level, they like you there. It makes them very uncomfortable when you're elevating.
This is really interesting because obviously I've worked in the educational field and I've worked with a lot of children. And because I love psychology, I see this quite a lot. The children who are the most likable are the most agreeable. And that actually correlates to work life as well. If you're a more of an agreeable person and say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, you are liked. The minute you put boundaries and the minute you say, no, actually, it's going to cause friction. And no one wants that. Even friendships and relationships, no one wants too much friction. Everyone wants to feel either equal or that person is below them. Once you start setting boundaries with people, that's when you're going to really cut off a lot of people and people are not going to start liking you. And for a person who wants to be a liked person, it can be a very hard experience, knowing that people are going to not like you because you set boundaries, because you're starting to care for yourself.
When you said that, what came to my mind was, if you think about a relationship, right, you're primarily trying to subconsciously look for someone that is compatible to you, someone that is almost the same as you in a way. But when it comes to a friendship, you're primarily looking for opposites, if you think about it, right? So think of it this way. In your personal life, in your romantic life, you want a partner that is compatible to you, and therefore you have to be almost similar in personality in order to work in a way, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you want someone that is equal, that is like you, and the way that it's easier in a relationship than to have two completely different people in the opposite spectrum.
To be honest, I think that's just in our relationship. I think there's quite a lot of people that do want a different power dynamic in their relationship. I think there are some men maybe who want to feel more powerful than the women they're with. So they might choose someone who's younger, who's got less experience. It could be a bit different in some situations.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah. In that particular sense, so if you look at friendship, if you look at the power dynamic of the society as a whole, and that's very true, right? So you don't want anyone that is constantly headbutting and trying to... In dominance hierarchy, you have that in men. It's very, very obvious to us, right? When you look at male dominance hierarchy, you can see there are a lot of times where you have alpha and there's this close second subordinate, maybe beta, let's just say the beta, has the potential to be alpha, will constantly butt head, constantly challenge that position of authority. This happens in the animal kingdom. This happens with us as humans as well. Because human beings as a whole, we live in a society with multiple hierarchies, right? So you have a hierarchy where if you're smart, if you do your university and education well, and there's a hierarchy, you can go and get a good job and you can earn more money, and there's that hierarchy, you get the status, right? There's a power hierarchy. If you go down in politics and you go down to become someone that is powerful, so you're trying to achieve and get more status and get more powerful, you're climbing up the hierarchy, that status. So when you have people that you feel like, okay, we are equal, and this person somehow trying to climb that up, you would immediately feel like, right, okay, we got to either put him down, or there's that competition, right? So it's a natural feeling for us to feel that way. And yes, it's absolutely right from what she's saying. But that also creates significant animosity between friendship groups and between the society as a whole. And unfortunately, the only way to overcome is that you just have to adopt values and understand whenever you feel a certain way, you have to call yourself out to understand and maybe harmonize or liberalize your view. That's the only way that you could solve that in the long term. And it happens in the male hierarchy, female hierarchy. I think it's all to do with the gender specific more than like we hardly see men and women compete the same way because it's difficult. Obviously, the Western world and the modern world has come to a point where that even at work, even in workplaces, there are men and women competing with each other for a position or for a place in the hierarchy. And what is difficult in this whole competition is we are not really sure how to compete. Men don't understand how to compete with women. Women don't understand how to compete with men because we have different strengths, right? So that creates so much conflict, which we have seen in the last few years within, the corporate 9 to 5 in the workplace hierarchy. We have seen this conflict that has even created the red pill community as a whole. So that all feeds into the fact that, yes, that's very normal what she's saying. And unfortunately, that is the case. And I'm a type of person that I do look at that and think like, that's such a sad way to look at life.
I mean, she's saying that no one wants someone who in their mind is superior, right? No one wants, because you can't feel at ease with someone who you feel in your mind they might not be to another person, but in your mind, because of your insecurities or the way you've grown up or something, you feel like they're superior. So why would you be friends with them? Why would you, you want to feel like you're either equal or you feel like you can almost maybe subconsciously dominate them in a friendship. Maybe that could be a thing, but...
yeah, 100%. I agree completely. It's, again, friendship is about what are you bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the table, right?
Yeah.
So if you're completely opposite to me, and that means you have the way you are, the values you have, the character you as a person has something completely different to mine. So I am curious. You might have some characteristics that are quite important to me or fascinates me.
Yeah, honestly.
And therefore we become friends.
No, that's so true, because some of my really close friends, I mean, I look at them in awe, even though I think we're deeply equal, there's some set of skills that they have I look at in awe. I think, wow, you're so funny and you're so intelligent, and I just love that about them, and I think I embrace that personally. Yeah. But it depends if you feel if you're an insecure person or you feel insecure about a certain thing, like maybe you feel like you're not that funny, and then you have a friend that's super funny and then gets everybody going. Then you're not going to feel like that friendship is equal. Then you might feel subconsciously want to distance yourself. But whereas if you love the idea of having a friend who's funnier than you and who can get the crowd going and that can put you at ease, then that's a great dynamic.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think that kind of relationship works so much better, because I have a lot of friends that I have, they have different strengths. Like they have different ways that some people are funny, some people have different skills. And that, from my perspective, for example, if you're my friend and you, like you said, you're funnier and I'm not that funny. And I find that to be fascinating. I find that to be, great, because I'm fascinated by it and I love it.
We're talking about the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, even growing up, the friend I have, Minol, he had a completely different personality to me, and that's what fascinated me, right? So he's so much funny. Everyone laughs. I crack up. It's his joke. And I always saw that and thought, wow, like I admire that, right? So if I had for example, down the line, I met people that were very similar to me, and most of the time we clashed. We clashed because obviously either that...
Strong personality.
And also... when you look at somebody and they have a trait that you have, and if it's something that is, maybe it's something that you hate about yourself and you see that in somebody else, that automatically creates a bit of hate in you.
Yeah, like a mirror, isn't it? Yeah. They're like a mirror to you, and then you don't like that part of them, and you don't know why, right? Yeah. But you're just like, they irritate me. Yeah.
It's primarily due to it's something that's within that individual, either something that you hate, or that's something that you had in your past life.
Yeah, that you have
That
healed
had-
from, and then you don't want to see that again. You don't
Yeah.
want to see that.
You
Yeah,
don't
that's,
want that to be
so
reminded.
so it couldn't be just. It's not just insecurities. It could
Yeah.
be a lot to do with trauma or
Yeah.
healing from trauma as well, and then seeing them again. And
Yeah, and you can see that in a large scale. If you look at minority in the Western civilization, you see, for example, Asian minority. You have these individuals, and when they come to a country, different country, they go through sort of different struggles. It could be racism. It could be something that they pronounced a word wrong, and someone else laughed at it, and that creates this little micro trauma for you. And then you go through all of that struggle, build into a person that you find more or less equal to the native people, let's say. And then you see someone else that is starting out, just come to this country or come to a different country where you are at, and you're seeing this little struggle that they're going through. They're pronouncing a word wrong. And that automatically, you feel like you're looking down on them because you feel like you don't want to be reminded of what you went through, that little trauma element aspect to it. So you're hating on that person on the basis that it reminds yourself of who you were. So all of this is emotionally driven, and these are well researched as well. And I do see that.
interesting topic.
It's a good chat. We've
Yeah,
been
I
talking for
think-
about 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's been really good. So on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, if you guys have any suggestions of any topics that you'd like us to talk about, please comment below. Thank you, and see you next time.
See you later.
See you. Bye.